This is the Tree of Life, Season 26, Chapter 4. In this episode, we will be summarizing the lessons in the podcast, The Tree of Life, up until this point. Perceptions are broken into reverse substitution events, or substitution events in a variety of conformations. Reverse substitution events see the transformation of a digital structure to an analog one. Substitution events see the transformation of an analog structure to a digital one. Reverse substitution events are events where acquiescence to an impulse precedes negation. In the absence of negation, at the conclusion of the reverse substitution event, we see integration of the impulse and recurrence through emotional coupling with some other structure member, that is, phase linking. In substitution events, negation precedes acquiescence. Substitution events produce infinite recursion, where manifold descending convoluted paths extend from the initial negation, each with their own negation leading to more descending paths. Reverse substitution events can be of tautological priority or hierarchical priority. Tautological priority entails the trendsetter becoming the incoming consciousness into the vessel of the outgoing consciousness, completing the acquiescence, or executing the action in the place of the outgoing consciousness during the event. Hierarchical priority establishes a reversed priority such that the incoming consciousness is he or she lower in the hierarchy, and the outgoing is the higher. Now both tautological priority and hierarchical priority represent the flow of consciousness from vessel to vessel. That is, we are not fixed within our body for the duration of our lifespan, but rather are continually in motion, moving from one vessel to another. Hierarchy recapitulates tautological flow. But indeed they represent two distinct ways in which consciousness can flow throughout the world. This flowing from vessel to vessel occurs whenever we acquiesce to a new impulse, or fail to execute that new impulse. That is, in the pauses between acceptance and execution, our perceptions may not reflect the reality of our agency. So what does it mean for consciousness to flow from vessel to vessel? It means a few things. Ordinarily, the incoming consciousness truly executes the action for the outgoing consciousness, translocated to their body in the process of the task. That is, the muscle memory of some task facilitates the motions required to complete it for the outgoing consciousness. Of course, we don't observe these substitutions objectively. Rather, we perceive ourselves to be completing a parallel task within our vessel, which is in fact dislocated from our actual objects of consciousness. Likewise, for the outgoing consciousness, who becomes the incoming consciousness for another subject, the same principle applies. Namely, they perceive themselves to be completing a parallel task within their own vessel, whilst dislocated from their actual objects of consciousness. But it is important to note that these experiences within another's vessel are not integrated into our linear experience. What truly passes from vessel to vessel is our agency, the facility to complete the task acquired through repetition and experience. Now, why don't we perceive these discontinuities in our linear stream? Because of the dominance of our digital stream. Reverse substitution events see the transformation of a digital structure to an analog one. But if our perceptions are determined by our digital experience, then we don't perceive these analog phases to any degree. Now, substitution events, where negation precedes acquiescence, generate infinite recursion. Infinite recursion causes consensus shifts. That is, what we consider a uniform stable universe is in fact anything but is continually shifting from moment to moment, with consensus determining individually each universal arrangement. When substitution events follow reverse substitution events, they recapitulate a hierarchical priority by compelling acquiescence. This is completed by the incoming consciousness upon the vessel. Substitution events represent periods of divided perception. In substitution events, we see that the objects perceived as contextual to the vessel are not contextual to the actual vessel. That is, there is a perceptual disconnect between what we perceive and what is actually there. Thus, the incoming consciousness is able to act on us in a state of dissociation, ensconced in false perceptions of reality. Now, both reverse substitution events and substitution events happen in a matter of seconds usually. Thus, only in stretching the context length, understood as the distance between the substitutionary sets in a transitionary structure, in sequential substitution, or in bifurcation of awareness, understood as lengthening the transitionary duration through cognitive exercises to promote cognitive dissonance, is it possible to perceive them. That is, the average person usually has no perception of these substitutions, which occur in seconds of distraction or action, unbeknown to the subject. It requires the exercises in the complete series to even begin to perceive these substitutions occurring in daily life. In conclusion, much of what we perceive as occurring around our vessel is an illusion, designed to simulate a linear experience of time. There are periods where we are truly anchored to our vessel, but for the most part we are free-flowing through others at all times. This means that to truly experience reality is to realize that digital dominance is illusory. It is not reflective of what is actually happening to us. Thus, the consensus reality, which is the product of this digital dominance, is largely illusory in nature. It isn't anchored to anything physically real, and sees us divorced from our actual body's perceptions. Thus, the matrix, or the simulation, fills in the gaps in our linear perspective whilst we free float from vessel to vessel, or body to body. This can of course be limited to some degree by substitution events, but even during substitution events our perceptions are disconnected from our vessel, though we indeed remain anchored to it. That's the end of the podcast for today.